And also was not expecting the Carolina Panthers to trade the #1 overall pick. We'll get into what's happening over there at the Coliseum this whole week. But
crazy.
What are the Panthers doing? They trade all that stuff and DJ Moore for the #1 pick? I'm sorry. I think they gave up too much. By the way, for those who don't know, the Carolina Panthers traded away.
Tell them what happened.
If you may have missed it last night because you were watching basketball, maybe you're at a concert, something along those lines. But Carolina Panthers traded the 9th pick in this year's draft. They also traded the 61st pick, which is a second-round pick in this year's draft. They traded their first-round pick in 2024 next year, and their 2025 second-round pick. So 4 draft picks they exchanged to move up to #1, and they gave up their best offensive player after trading Christian McCaffrey away in DJ Moore, their #1 wide receiver. They traded all 5 of those assets to move up to the #1 pick with the Chicago Bears. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I like it. We'll get into this a little bit more, but just instant reaction, I don't know if I like it.
My immediate reaction was the same, but I've had a little bit of sleep on it. Got a nice little 4.5 hours of sleep last night.
Yeah, we got a nap last night.
And which actually is the most consecutive sleep I've had this entire week.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm starting to come around to it.
Okay.
I do not like DJ Moore not being a part of this team. But if that means that we need to if that's going to get the Panthers a little bit closer to where I would like for them to go, and DJ Moore is in a couple of picks, are the only casualties in that to get the quarterback that we want,
sure,
then I'm with that. Because also, here's the thing. There's clearly a plan. Before, when Matt Rule was there was no plan.
We'll get into the plan here in just a minute. But here's the thing that I know a lot of Carolina Panthers fans are frustrated with is that how many assets are going to continue to be put into one position? Because obviously they're going to go up to get a quarterback. You're not going to move up there to take a linebacker. You're just not. You're not going to go up there to get Will Anderson. It's just not worth all of that. But in the last 3 years, the Carolina Panthers have traded a 2021 6th-round pick,
right,
a 2nd-round pick in 2022, a 4th-round pick in 2022, another 4th-round pick in 2022, a 2023 3rd-round pick, a 5th-round pick in 2024, another 1st in 23, a 2nd in 23, a 1st in 24, and a 2nd in 2025, and DJ Moore. So basically, if you kept up with that, 10 draft picks and their #1 wide receiver. 10 draft picks in the last, that's going to span between 2021 and 2025. 10 draft picks and your #1 wide receiver for one position. Because you've traded for Sam Darnold, you traded for Baker Mayfield, you moved up in the draft to get Matt Corral, and now you're moving up again. You're using that's an entire draft class.
I will say this though,
for one position.
Scott Fitterer, of course, is a part of a lot of that, but we know who also was making a lot of those calls.
Tepper
and Matt Rule.
Oh, no, fake Matt Rule is going to take full credit for this, by the way. We're going to hear that at 11.
Matt Rule made a lot of those calls, and also if you think about the position the Panthers were in last year, Matt Rule knew that his job was on the line.
Oh, yeah.
So what do the Panthers have to do for him to potentially keep his job? For him to potentially keep his job, remember, he had a lot of say-so, a lot more than what Frank Reich has right now. Then that meant like, hey, we got to try to go do something big. We got to try to go after Deshaun Watson. Oh, the Browns overpaid for Deshaun Watson. Okay, let's make a splash. Let's go get Baker Mayfield. Like, so he was trying to save his job. I'm trying to separate what happened yesterday from what happened before because it's 2 separate head coaches. And one of the things you always have to read in between the lines when we're talking to these sports figures. A lot of what we heard since Frank Reich has been hired is that, oh, wow, Frank Reich and Scott Fitterer work so well together. They collaborate so well together. What does that tell you, Dennis?
They're communicating?
That tells you that maybe Matt Rule and Scott Fitterer didn't really get along as well.
Here's the thing. Fitterer came in after Matt Rule did because Matt Rule was there for a season before Scott Fitterer came in. And
Matt Rule was calling the shots.
Yeah,
and now Scott Fitterer feels like he's with somebody he can actually collaborate with. And so now maybe they're working together. They're getting this collaboration. They're putting it together. And here's something else I want to point out. This was tweeted by Mike Kay last night.
Okay.
Former Frank Reich wide receivers hitting the market in the next week.
Okay.
Okay. Now, because I'm worried, as other Panthers fans are, about where the production is going to come from the wide receiver position.
Yes,
because
can't wait for checkdowns to Tommy Tremble.
There wasn't a lot outside of DJ Moore. Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton, Mac Hollins, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Pascal. Now, that's not a lot of huge names.
They have a bunch of those guys on their roster already.
But these are guys that are already familiar with what Frank Reich wants to do. And if they're going to go ahead and have some type of production, maybe you don't have the one guy that has 1,000 yards. But if you have a bunch of guys that have 500 yards.
No, but you need that number one guy. You have to have a number one guy and complementary pieces around. You just need it. Because otherwise, who's gonna be scared? Like, who's gonna be scared on the perimeter if you don't have a guy that's gonna beat someone one-on-one? So maybe, they have to.
Maybe you're gonna be afraid that everybody can go off and you don't know which person's
okay.
Double.
Well, is there
everybody has one-on-ones, or everybody's finding the soft place in the zone?
Yeah, they're nothing on that roster right now, or any of those names that you just mentioned that screams, watch out for that guy. There is none of that right now.
There's other guys though. I mean, I would say T.Y. Hilton still has it. He looked good for Dallas. He'll be a good 2 or 3. Yeah, he'll be a good 2 or 3. I'm not saying a number one. You have DeAndre Hopkins still out there, and honestly, you could go get McCole Hartman. They do need a number one now, because who's out there that's going to take DJ Moore's spot? I agree with you that they need a number one.
Yeah, they definitely do. There's a lot out there, but Scott Fitterer, the general manager at the NFL Combine back in February, said that, you know what, if you have your guy, you got to make sure you go and get him if you like him.
Well, you go get the guy that you want. If you have conviction on a guy, you go get him. It's pretty simple that way. If you don't know and you're going to give all these resources to go up and get it, you're hurting your team in the long run. You better be right. You better have conviction if you do move up. But when you do that, you're all in.
Keyword there, conviction, Chris. And here's the thing as well, is that the Carolina Panthers actually did put themselves in the position to move up to make this move. Because despite the trade, the Panthers still have 6 picks in this draft. They obviously will have the number 1 overall pick. They still have pick 39, which is a high second-round pick.
Because they traded Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, because of Chris McCaffrey trade. So they still have picks in the second, third, 2 picks in the 4th, and a 5th-round pick. So it's not like they're not drafting anybody. So they still have quality picks that are going to be out there. So you do have a plan. And this is where I think Frank Reich has come in and has discussed his plan or what his wants are with Fitterer and David Tepper. Because, again, the common denominator in all these moves for quarterback is David Tepper. Because David Tepper wants to make that splash move. He made it. Frank Reich in Indianapolis, he started off with Andrew Luck.
Yep.
He decided to retire because of injuries and stuff. Out of nowhere, decided to retire. And for it was just like this revolving door of just these plug-in guys.
1-year rentals.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. So it was just he never had consistency at quarterback. And it's something he spoke about at the Combine as well, is that, or even at his introductory press conference, you got to have a guy that's going to be stable and consistent in that position. And hopefully, again, a lot of big moves for an unknown. I'm assuming it's going to be C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, but nevertheless, a lot of moves for an unknown. But I'm sure Frank Reich is probably going to be pretty ecstatic knowing I know who my guy is going to be. Yeah. And as Scott Fitterer said, you got to have that conviction.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go wishy-washy, unsure of it. They must have saw something at the Combine and said, that's our guy.
And we're going to talk more about this later, but also the Panthers, with that move, set themselves up to have even more cap space next year.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they're giving up a lot of draft capital for this one position, they're also setting themselves up to where they can go after some splash guys this year, next year, maybe the year after, and probably put themselves in the conversation as one of the top teams in the NFC. We'll see. They'll have to actually do it, but they're setting themselves up to be in that position.
I feel like I've talked myself into liking this move, and I'm not sure I like the fact that I talked myself into liking this. I'm not sure. I don't know. I
feel the same way because I'm attached to DJ Moore. DJ Moore is us. You know what I'm saying? Like he was a Carolina Panther, and he was the type of guy that you wanted to look at the end of the day and said, that was one of the Panthers' greats. He is second behind Steve Smith in receiving yards. And, man, he's amazing. We're going to put his number up one day.